think my microphone's on so they can hear me cough and everything else. Genius. Hashtag genius. Good evening. So I'm back at the bench, and we're just a couple weeks away from opening day, so I'm just tying as much as I can to fill my inventory before I make my rounds to all the stores that I sell to. The heads we got tonight a little bit different. I don't know if I've tied anything like this recently. Just a plain flat head. We're doing 1/2. These have a Mustad hook. It's a 32755. It's a 2-watt, so it's a longer shank compared to most of the jigs. But the steps that we're going to take are all the same. Nothing special tonight. No tinsel or flash. We're not adding anything fancy. We're just doing basic black and white bucktail. So, let's get situated. Put our jig in the vise, and just like always, parallel to the jaws of the vise, which are parallel to the tabletop. I'm using size A nylon thread, rod wrapping thread. This is PacBay. I use Gudebrod a lot when I can still find it, and Fuji are two brands that I use quite often. This tail, let's see here, this is what I have left of a tail, so I have to be careful a little bit with the hairs that go right up the center. Very usable and very good hairs. This is a nice tail. Might be a little bit short for this shank, so I just have to be careful when I'm taking my pinch, so I'm not wasting too much of those short hairs, and I'll save them for a 1/4 ounce head, something like that. Take my pinch and I remove the smaller, shorter hairs, broken hairs out of the butt end. Switch my grip, and I can stack these by hand. I do have some of those shorter fibers in there, and that's what I'm taking out right now. As I turn my hand, I can just see some that are about half the length. But we're going to tie this, the length of the body, past the bend of the hook will be the length of our tail, which is right to the end of this silver part of my vise. Makes it very easy to measure. I trim right up against my fingers, and I keep my left hand pinched tight. I lock it on 2 or 3 reps towards the bend of the hook and 2 or 3 reps back towards the head. Slammin' Jack, how you doing? So we're just tying, like I said, a very simple jig. Nothing fancy today. Everything I'm doing for the next couple weeks really will be to just fill the inventory. Darkman, wow, I got a couple names I recognize, so hi guys. Keep that left hand pinch tight through the whole process. I'm going to move my hand just so everybody can see. I am doing good, Darkman, or Slammin' Jack. Just busy. Since we are getting close to opening day. So as much as I can, I'm just filling the boxes. Tie as much as I can. There's always a new color that I don't have that many of in the box. Or a head style that last summer wasn't quite as popular, and all of a sudden that's what everybody wants. So I do have a couple new stores that I'll be stopping at this year, and we'll see what happens with those. But I stay primarily right here in central New York State. From Binghamton I head up to Syracuse, couple shops in the Catskills, and down in PA, one shop. So here we go. How's that? It's a nice jig. Black and white is a nice color. The thread collar color can be anything you want. I don't much mind if it's just a black thread. Red for the last few years has been super popular, so that's how everybody wants it. Last week I did a quick video knowing that I probably won't do anything like I usually do on the weekends and publish usually around Sunday evening. But I did do an extra video a couple weeks ago that I will post over the weekend. That third in this series for the bucktail bass jigs, I'll probably get to that next weekend. I do want to finish that up, but I'm playing with a couple different ideas. I'm not sure, like I mentioned in the last video, how I wanted to do something a little crawdaddy. And there's a few different ways that I know how to simulate the claws. I'm just not exactly sure how I want to go about doing that. I really like doing it using feathers, but I also have an awful lot of, rabbit, and I have some other materials too that might be really cool. So I haven't decided which ones I want to show, but I do want to finish up the third video, just because I'm having a blast tying those jigs. So. I was just looking at some of the numbers recently also, and we're getting closer to 500 subscribers, and I'm thinking about having some sort of drawing once we hit that 500 mark, and I can randomly go through the list of subscribers. And, maybe we could do up a dozen or so jigs, or that's what I'm thinking of right now. I think would be fun to do, and maybe, interesting, and help boost those subscribers. But gotten used to the equipment, doing the live streams. Just making sure everything's recording and the microphone's on. I'm sure you guys can hear me. I can see that we've responded, but wouldn't be the first time I keep talking and nobody can hear me. So the white bucktail that I'm using, it's just a natural white. It's not dyed. It's not bleached. I don't usually buy white tails. I have, sometimes you need them, but between, you know, the group of guys I hunt with every year, and you know, people, everybody knows everybody. So I actually get a whole bunch of tails every year, and I usually just leave them white. I don't dye them like, you know, growing up, you know, in the house we actually did. My dad actually processed furs and feathers for a while when he first started tying, and I don't think my wife would put up with that. I keep the tails that I do salt myself, and you know, prepare for tying in the summer. I keep those hidden away in the garage. So how are we doing? That's a nice, black and white is a nice color, nice combination. I got some heads here, I'll show you. Actually, I've been tying these up, and I plan on painting some flatheads the same way, where the head is a two-tone. And what I've been doing, do I have any on my rack? I think I've put them all away. What I've been doing is I have a dun color. This isn't the pattern, but this is the color. I have this dun color that I have that on the back, and then a white belly, and then I just turn the jig over and I just put a very small strip of black. Peacock curl would look really nice as well, but the black bucktail does nice, and it's looks like a shad. Real nice jig. So I'll have to tie those up soon. I'm trying to figure out, instead of striping them, just adding a single spot. And it looks okay, but I want to figure out a way to do it a little bit better. Right now, the couple dozen that I put in the box just have no spot, just the dun color with the white. I do plan on painting more of those two-tone heads. Maybe do a few different combinations, black and white. I have another head that I like tying just for myself. It's a yellow, kind of like a school bus yellow with a brown top to it, and it's nice. It's pretty jig. Looks nice with a natural brown and yellow. It's a nice jig. I like fishing that in the river here locally. Darkman's looking forward to that shad. I think maybe what I'll do is once I finish that third video with the bass jigs, we'll do that one. It'll be nice, actually. I had a good time just tying that up. Not sure. I think I was just flipping through the Cabela's catalog and looking at some of the stick baits that they have, and just figured that it's a color that you don't usually see. And I did do a bunch of done colored jigs with this, just like these here. Where I got this epoxy that's a silver, like a brushed silver. So I've been doing jigs with this done color. Here's a little bit lighter tail. I'm not sure, you know, I think it's just you get some tails where the shade's a little bit off, but that done color with the white belly. So I've been playing with these, and a couple shops took a few dozen last summer. I guess they've sold well because at wintertime I didn't see them on the wall anymore, so I do have a few dozen for people to take this year. So turn this around. I do jigs for trout. I have a video where I did the a jig that I tie for a specific guy, and he fishes the Delaware River, mostly East Branch, West Branch. He does fish the main stem as well, but he's from Windsor, so deposits, I don't know, what, 5 minutes away. But it's a squirrel tail jig that he described what he wanted, and I tied, and I had an odd Mustad hook. I think it's 3111. It's a weird shape. To me it looks like a nymph hook that you would tie for, you know, typical trout nymph jig, nymph fly, and but it has a 1/32 ball head that I cast onto it, and then it's got some crystal flash, squirrel hair. Originally I tied for him, I used black bear, but black bucktail works great. And he's one of the best fishermen that I've met for the Delaware. He just knows every hole and backwoods path, and you know, he's a local guy. He grew up in the area, and just a really good fisherman. But he's been happy with the, you know, what we tied for him, and I do it on a straight hook as well. I'm just looking at my rack to see. Sometimes if I do extra ones, I'll throw them up here with the videos. I'm still keeping this pinch tight. Do I have any way to hold this? All right. This is that hook. That doesn't work. Hold on. Uh-oh. Disaster. I dropped it in my garbage bag. Let's see. Do I have another one? Alright, that's terrible. Hold on. I kept this pinch tight. Let me finish this jig and I will dig through my garbage. That will be interesting to watch. And so I can just show you that jig. Weird hook. It's just an odd shape, but he fishes it just like he would a nymph. Just lets it bounce along the bottom, carried by the current. Doing it on a regular jig with a you know, typical Mustad hook. To me, it fishes real well, and I fish it under a bobber sometimes, and I'm mostly just fishing. You know, we're catching panfish and perch and smaller fish at that point. Not really targeting the trout, but it's a pretty jig. I like squirrel tail. I like that color difference between from tail to tail. You know, the browns, the blacks, the gray. So now, and the one thing I never really think about, if people are meaning trout jigs, if they're wanting something heavier too. So if that's kind of what you're meaning also, I most certainly could tie something if you're fishing deeper water. So I know guys up in the Finger Lakes, which again isn't far. I'm like dead in the center of, I can go different directions and I got great places to fish. I'm 40 minutes away from Cayuga Lake. Mostly I think they're trolling for the lake trout, but we catch them from shore. I do a goby pattern, you know, an olive and brown 1/8 jig with a little bit of crystal flash, and we catch the lake trout from shore. All right, let me find that jig. If it was heavier, it would fall all the way to the bottom. Crisis averted. All right. Let me see if I have a... Surprised I don't have any forceps here. This will have to do. All right. So this is that jig with that weird Mustad hook. So it's a small jig. It's got that eye that's at an angle. Yeah, there we go. So it's a real neat jig. He loves it. Few guys locally, Windsor area, they'll fish it in the Delaware. So, all right, where are we at? Look at this. I did forget to look at the clock. I think it was 7:15-ish when I started. I want to remind everybody to, if you have any questions or curious about the different techniques or anything that we're doing here today, again, I know I'm not tying anything super special, but go ahead and put those comments down below, and be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any new content. I've been chugging right along lately, and doing pretty well at doing a live stream and a video each week. And I do plan on continuing that. This pinch was from near the tip of the tail, and I got hairs that are going a few different directions. So I do have to spend a little extra time just stacking and placing those hairs back in the pinch. And since it is the end of the tail, there are a couple that are broken, so I've pulled out those tips as well. One trick when I'm restacking is sometimes I'll roll the pinch in my fingers. It just repositions some of the hairs as I'm looking at them. But then when I switch hands, this pinch always stays tight. When I lock on the hairs, we're looking to get this V shape. Oop, that's the second time I did that today. There we go. You could use a whip finish tool to finish off this collar. The size of the head, you'd have to be a little bit careful so you don't catch yourself on the eye of the hook. You could whip finish this by hand, but I like using just a loop underneath my last wrap to make a nice pretty collar. Let's see if I can stretch this out. So this pinch is from the center of the tail. So the hairs are real nice, but are getting a little short, as you can see. But I'm going to try to see if I can salvage some of this. If not, I have another tail sitting right here, but so I got to be a little bit careful and mind where the ends are. Actually, I guess it'll be all right. It works with room to spare. So I take my pinch, and I just remove some of those short hairs, the broken hairs, out of the butt end, and then I switch my grip just so I can restack these longer hairs. I do try to keep it somewhat natural. I don't want it to look like I put these in a hair stacker. I can just keep switching my grip until I get the length that I want. Keep this pinch tight. And when I lock this on, there's 3 wraps towards the bend of the hook, a couple wraps back towards the head, and I have this V shape, which is what That's what I'm looking for. Wrap the thread back up to the head with touching wraps, and then back to the center of the collar, and then back to the head, just to make a nice cone shape. To finish this, I'll use a length of thread of an opposite color, walk the threads back to the center, and then back to the head. And pull through my tag end. Like I've mentioned, you can use a whip finish tool for this. Just have to be a little careful of the head and the hook eye. But there we go. Black and white jig. Very nice color. I like fishing this color. That don't look right. So when I place a hook in the vise, I want to make sure that the hook is parallel to the tabletop. Which helps with positioning your thread, you know, as long as I'm centered behind the jig. Again, removing the smaller pieces out of the butt end and just restacking. I want to measure this so my tail is the body length past the bend of the hook. I lock this on 3 wraps towards the bend of the hook, 2 wraps back towards the head. I give that a twist. This white tail is a natural, undyed, just a natural bucktail, not bleached, just cleaned, split and cleaned. Then I can just remove any hairs that just don't look right. Looks good. Keep this left hand pinch tight through the whole process. And again, we're looking to get that V shape in the hair, which also helps with keeping that collar a nice cone shape. Wider at the head, and it gets a little smaller as you get back towards the bucktail. So I usually use this other thread until it breaks, but I know that this one, I've done a couple dozen jigs with it already, so it's about ready to break. There we go. Nice black and white jig. These flatheads are nice. I fish them mostly in the river. Just helps get down and not be so affected by the current. lock on my thread with open wraps. Oh, I noticed the hair's feeling a little staticky. When I reached into my waste bag, I have a dryer sheet that I usually clip on the top edge, and I see that I've pushed it down, so that's why the hair is starting to stick to my fingers a little bit. This pinch is just, if I pinch this as tight as I can, some of these pieces aren't as long. They're a little bit shorter than where my scissors are. So if I choke up on that pinch anymore, it'll be too much, and when I lock it on, there's going to be a bunch of hair that comes out of the center of that tail. So I'll switch tails, but I can get this on. See, nothing come out. There's that V. Give it a twist. Not really tying anything fancy right now. These jigs I'm just going to be adding to the inventory. Opening day will be in just a couple weeks, so I'm tying as much as I can and packaging as much as I can. I got my oldest boy who still lives at home. I put him to work every spring packaging, getting everything ready for the bait shop run that I do. So this one I just continued without taking my hand away, keeping this left hand pinch tight. Helps keep the hair compressed, and then when you let it go, your wraps are tight, so the hair is not going to be able to pull out. We do put head cement. I use lacquer-based head cement on the collars. I usually tie a few dozen, and then I'll clear off the area and put the head cement on all at once for all of them. But I could fish this jig right now without any head cement. It would catch plenty of fish and be nice and strong. Let's see, we do a couple more and get a dozen finished. Started about 7:15. If I wasn't chit-chatting, I'd probably get probably 3 dozen in an hour is typical, depending on the color, depending on how nice your tails are. If the hair is real nice and you don't have to fuss with it that much, it really speeds things up. Though sometimes as a production tire, I don't have the luxury of being picky about my tails. That looks good. Measuring the tail, the length of the body past the bend of the hook. Be all right. can keep going back and forth with my pinch until I get the size, the length that I want, so they match. This pinch stays tight. I got an odd hair. Couple wraps towards the bend of the hook, couple wraps towards the head. I always finish the wrap right up against the head, so when I pull this tag end through, it's coming from the outside and going through. And what I'll do real quick is I have a box of dryer sheets. Just want to make sure you have the kind that anti-static. And the screw on the bottom of my universal vise kind of has a leg on it. I just push the dryer sheet up over that. Thanks, Slam and Jack. You take care too. It's really nice. We had actually a good amount of people. I don't know if anybody's really setting their schedule to watch me, but there's certain channels that I'll watch when they go live, and it just happens that those are just the times that I'm sitting on the YouTube. I usually have it playing in the background as I tie. Not a big TV watcher in general, but I do want to have something on in the background when you're spending a couple hours sitting at the tying bench. This blacktail, the hairs at the bottom here, they're hollow, but they're not round. They're compressed. So it feels a little different. The hairs are still good, nice and strong, and they'll look good when they're fished. But they do have an odd texture to them. Different than this whitetail, where the hair is coming from farther up on the tail. When you pinch this, it feels like solid hair. When you pinch this, it mushes a little bit. And like I said, it feels like a little bit flat on the ends. Not the entire pinch. It's just a percentage of it. Lock this on. Touching wraps up to the head. And I see that I got a couple little butts, black pieces poking out of the bottom of the collar, the top of the jig here. and we will fix that in this step here. So to whip finish this, if I touching wraps back towards the center of the collar, and that already covered what was sticking out, and then I walk the wraps back to the head. If I needed to, if there was a little bit more hair sticking out, maybe a couple more butt pieces, I could walk this back one more time. And the whole idea that you just, the thing that you want to keep in mind is if you do walk the thread back, you're doing it in a way where you go back all the way, you go back 3/4 of the way, you go back half, you go back 1/4. So it's a gradient. So you're always finishing your collar to maintain that cone shape. So wider at the head, thinner at the bucktail. And it's all for aesthetics. It's all, because it's pretty. It's pretty when it's shaped that way. So what do we got? One more will give us a dozen. And I think this will do it for this evening. So we'll do this one up real quick. And it's been a good night. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate it. If people sit through me babbling, always happy to talk about jigs and fishing. Like most tires, we don't always fish as much as we hope. When there's orders to get done. So I'm restacking. I started with the black hair, my darker color, which will end up on the top of the jig. Can adjust my grip until we get the length that we need. And I'm measuring the length of the hook shank past the bend of the hook. Look at odd hair. That's all right. There it is. Once I'm happy with that, switch my grip, keep this pinch tight. Lock this on. 2 or 3 wraps towards the bend of the hook, 2 or 3 wraps back to the head, and we're looking for this V shape. And give it a twist to put that dark hair to the side that will become the top of the jig as you're fishing it. And take our pinch of white. Removing some of the smaller pieces from the butt end. And I switch my grip just so I can restack. And this pinch is getting a little bit closer to the end of this white tail, so the lengths of hair are all over the place. So I'll measure the hair against the black, and I can change my grip until I get the length that I want. Again, switch grips and keep this left hand pinch tight. Couple wraps towards the bend of the hook, couple wraps back towards the head. And my left hand is still tight until I can remove it. And to finish this, I take a loop of thread underneath my last wrap. Touching wraps back towards the center and then back to the head. There we go. Very simple black and white jig. I think that'll do it for this evening. I want to thank everybody who's shown up tonight. It was a nice surprise. We had some good conversation. I'll remind everybody to add some comments down below if you have any questions on what we did here tonight. I'll be sure to read those and answer those. And as always, like and subscribe so you don't miss any new content. Keep tying, and until next time, guys, tight lines.